good evening, good morning, welcome. Whichever service you're at, good morning. We're about to ask a few questions about what is love. I think I see a few people coming. Watch.
Love is taking care of people without conditions.
Love is love. You gotta love people, love one another.
Feeling for somebody, taking care of them, wanting to take care of them.
I wouldn't know, I'm 14.
You feel alive when you feel it. When you don't have it, you feel like you're dead.
That's a good question.
So, what is love to you? More than just a smile on your face?
My girlfriend.
Oh, that was a good answer. Some extra points there. Okay. What is love to you? Like, what does it feel like?
It's being away from somebody for 2 minutes and missing them already. It's feeling goosebumps when you hug them. It's just intimate. It's secure.
Kindness, tenderness, joy, happiness, compassion, all of those things.
Occasionally, there is a product that comes along that becomes so popular, so widely used, that the name of that product becomes the generic term for the product itself. The classic example of this is Kleenex. We ask for a Kleenex if we want to blow our nose or wipe our nose. But that's actually a brand name, but it's become a generic term for a tissue. If we make a copy of something, we might say that we Xerox it. That's the brand name, but it's become a generic term. Thermos is another name. We say any insulated cup. Well, that's my thermos. Or, I know it's hard to think about today, but on a hot day, if you go to the refrigerator, you might get out a popsicle. The greatest popsicle of all, of course, is grape popsicle. But that's besides the point. But popsicle is the brand name. But that's the generic term that we call it. Today, of course, in today's world, if you want to ask a question or make an inquiry, what do? You Google it. You go to Google and you ask the question. In the time that it takes me to say this sentence, about 252,000 inquiries were submitted to Google. Every 24 hours, Google processes 5.6 billion, with a B, inquiries or questions. And so, being curious, I ask Google, what were the top theological questions asked of Google in 2021? And the list that was generated in 0.6 of a second, which still befuddles me, is incredible. But what it did was create the basis for the first sermon series of the year. And so for the next few weeks, we're going to explore these top questions that were asked on Google in 2021. And the number one question by a long shot is the same question that was asked in the video just a few minutes ago. What is love? According to Google, in 2021, this question was asked 5 million times a month. Yeah. By far and away, almost 2 to 1, this was the number one question, or the number one theologically based question, faith-based question, which I find fascinating for a lot of reasons, but primarily because when our popular culture, we heard this on the video, when our popular culture responds to that question by saying love is love, Despite that, 5 million times a month, people want to know what love is. It's the question that's been explored by people and asked by people before Google came along. As a matter of fact, it goes back to the first time that a caveman put two sticks together and created a rhythm. We started singing about love. Howard Jones asked that question in a song, What is love? Back in 1984. The Beatles sang, All You Need Is Love. Freddie Mercury sang about this crazy little thing called love. Toni Tennille, remember her? What'd she sing? Love, that's going to get stuck in your head now. So you're welcome. The Four Aces, among several others, sang, Love is a many-splendored thing. My favorite, the juxtaposition to that is Peter Wolf with his band Jay Giles, who famously went to the heart of the matter and just sang, Love Stinks. And so let's begin by confessing that love is confusing. Love is love, but it should never be confused with a passing acquaintance, a popular icon on Facebook, or lust, or a yearning. When used generically, yes, love is love, but on the other hand, the same love that I have for a cheeseburger right off the backyard grill is not the same love that I have for my wife or my children. No wonder love is so confusing. This one word has been the subject and the focus of songs and poems and entire books in the Bible. So to make it a topic of just one sermon, I realize is presumptuous of me, since we were created by and we worship a God whose very nature is love. A big part of our problem is that in the English language, love, that one word, has several different meanings. When Rick Ocasek of the Cars, when the Cars were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Rick Ocasek was the last band member to speak. And in his speech, he thanked his family. He said, I want to thank my family for loving me. But especially, I want to thank my family for liking me. I thought he hit it on the nose. But any honest study of the nature of love has to juxtapose the way love is lived out and defined by the world and the way love is written about and defined on God's terms in the Bible. Merriam-Webster states that love is a noun and a verb. Love is defined by a strong and constant affection, attraction, and yes, romantic feelings. Love is marked by enthusiasm and admiration, not unlike your love for your favorite college or sports team. Love, this is interesting. If you're a tennis player, you know this. Love means nothing. If you haven't scored any points, that's love, which that's a topic for another day. Love as a verb, is to cherish, to caress, to take pleasure in, to feel affection for, to experience desire. As in, I just love my new hiking shoes. A big reason love is confusing is because there's a difference between the world's definition of love and what we find in the Bible. And so let's explore just for a few moments what love is on the world's terms. As was famously said, I'm not a smart man, but you know the rest of that. I know what love is. Love, on the world's terms, is relational. This is what the dictionary defines as that's the strong affection for another, arising out of a relationship that could be family relationship, it could be a relationship. Relational love can happen without God. Love, on the world's terms, is reciprocal. Reciprocity is the idea of exchanging goods for a mutual benefit. Reciprocal love gives affection towards something or someone with the expectation that something will be received in return. In the same way, reciprocal love can happen without God because it's conditional. Reciprocal love says, I love you as long as. And to be honest, this is how many people, even inside the church, see their relationship with God. If I'm nice and good and virtuous, then God will love me. That's love on the world's terms. Love on the world's terms is romantic. Love that is based on feelings. It's directed from one person to another. It's often referred to as romantic or sexual. This is the love we often hear about sung in popular music. Love, on the world's terms, includes all of these things. We see it in our movies, we hear it on our songs, and we justify it. As long as love is consensual between two adults, nobody gets hurt. Love is in all these things. It's how the world sees love. But God has something different in mind. As you might guess, love is a very popular topic that we find in the Bible. But this morning, I just want to focus on what Karen read in 1 Corinthians 13. We know that chapter as the love chapter. It's the most popular set of verses in the Bible for any wedding, in a church or outside of a church. This is the number one chapter that's read at weddings. In the prelude to today's reading, it comes from Paul's first letter to the church in Corinth. He actually talks about, he refers to love as a more excellent way. He places a huge emphasis that we have to get this love thing right. No matter what I do, no matter how I speak, no matter how cool I am, no matter if it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, if I don't do something in love, with love, then nothing else matters. Love, he writes, it's vital to our well-being. It's vital to our spiritual well-being. It's vital to our Christian walk with Jesus. Now, one of the apostles, John, he wrote extensively, beautifully, poetically about love. In 1 John 4:16, he says this about love: because of Jesus, we know and rely on the love God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in him. If we are going to have Christ dwelling in us, we must have love. So what is love? Well, Paul gives us several pictures this morning. And he tells us what love is not. Love is not envious. Love is not boastful. It's not prideful. It's not rude. It's not irritable. It's not resentful. Love does not demand its own way. Love is not involved in any wrongdoing. Love, in any study of the Bible, has anything to do, not one iota, with pleasing ourselves. Love is not a selfish thing that we do in order to satisfy ourselves. It's something we do that we allow others to have satisfaction. It's not just a feeling, it's not something that we fall in and out of. The world will tell you that love is all about a feeling that magically appears and disappears based on the other person's actions. Love wants more, true love wants more for the other person than for ourselves. This is love. And so Paul this morning defines love a little bit differently. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. In other words, love is the whole enchilada. I struggled with my metaphors this week. So if that comes up short for you, I'm really sorry, but maybe you've got a different one. Write it down, let me know. Love is just the whole enchilada. It's not just a feeling or emotion. Love is action. Love is something we do completely and unselfishly for the benefit, not of for ourselves, but for others. Love is sitting with the elderly or the sick, even if you've got better things to do. Love is standing by a child when they're desperate and they need encouragement. Love is wanting more for your spouse or your children than you want for yourself. It isn't about how we feel. Love is reflected in our attitude. In living a selfless life and doing all that we can for the benefit of someone else. Love, I heard Andy Stanley preach on this once, and he said, love is a submission competition. This is love on Jesus' terms, not our own. This is love that sacrifices. Love that feeds the hungry. Love that provides a drink of water for those who are thirsty. Love that welcomes the stranger. Love that clothes the naked. Love that tends to the sick and provides friendship for those who are in prison. Back in the 1960s, there was a pastor by the name of Dr. Edward Victor Hill. He was an African-American pastor in the Watts area of Los Angeles. If you remember what was going on during that time, it was not a wonderful time in history. There were race riots that broke out. There were burnings and lootings and shootings, not all that different than what was going on in 2020. But Dr. Hill spoke out against it. He courageously spoke out in that area. And from his own pulpit, he spoke out even against his own neighbors who were destroying property, stealing from stores. And what happened was all this brought threats back onto him. One night in his home, his phone rang, and it was late. And as Dr. Hill held the phone to his ear, his wife could tell that whatever was going on, whatever the phone call was about was not good. When he hung up, she wanted to know who it was who had called and what they wanted, but Hill wouldn't tell her. She kept pursuing, she kept persisting, and demanded that he tell her who it was. And finally, He said, I don't know who it was, but they threatened to blow up my car with me in it. Well, they later went to bed, and Hill tossed and turned. He was troubled. He couldn't sleep. Laid almost all night, and finally, near dawn, he finally fell asleep. Several hours later, he woke up, and he realized his wife was not in bed with him, and he went down and started searching and couldn't find her. The more he searched and couldn't find her, the more he called out, the more worried he got. And he became terrified when he looked out his front door in the carport and realized that his car was gone. And so he stopped and he prayed and he fretted. Of course, he couldn't call her. Finally, he was relieved when he saw the car pull into the driveway and pull into the carport. And when his wife came in the house, he almost screamed at her. He said, "Where have you been?" And she said something later. He said, I'll never forget this. She said, "I just wanted to drive the car around the block to make sure that it was safe for you this morning." And he said, from that day on, from that moment on, I never asked my wife if she loved me. John the apostle wrote, this is love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. This is the definition of love. And as we go back out into the world, may we redefine our lives, not on the terms of what the world says is love, but hold it in our hearts with this God of great love who lives in us and through us. And that we can live and share this kind of love with others.